guides the person on what they have to achieve, how they're going to go about achieving it, and when. Those are key. How, what, and when. Yeah? It's dynamic. It's a dynamic working document. In that, there can be points at which it can be changed. And if you look at what Donna's got here, the improving the diet, she's still talking about it here. So although the diet has been improved, it has to be sustained. So constantly she has to be reviewing how it is that she is maintaining that diet, how it is that she's maintaining that exercise plan, how it is that Johan is maintaining that saving of the money that he needs in order to get this trip on track. So there's a constant review of how the goals are being achieved. And if they're not being achieved, it's not the end of the world. There's an awareness that's created. And that's the thing about a plan. And when I was talking to Joan plans in her head. She doesn't put things down on paper, and she gets things done. But when I forced her to put stuff on paper, what happened was it was so easy for her to identify what the issues were that she needed to address. And now, when she needs to address them. Now, some people can actually manage themselves very effectively in that way. But some people can't. Some people actually need to put things down on paper to make the ideas explicit, to give them that insight, that awareness of where they are on that route to achieving what they need to achieve. And in a teaching and learning situation or a management situation, you want to build that rapport, that awareness with your student, with your client, with your staff member, so that there's a transparent, explicit knowing of what it is that that person wants to achieve, so that you can support and you can guide it. But if it's not written down, it's not available to you. If it's sitting here, it's not available to you to guide and support and to manage. Yeah. It's a record of learning goals and progression routes. Why is it that? This is all in your study guide as well. Why do you think a learning plan is that? A record of learning goals and progression routes. As the goals are identified, yes?
See where you are on your journey so that you can see how far you've come, which will inspire you hopefully to carry on.
Absolutely, yes. It's a constant reflection to you of what you've achieved and therefore what you've learned on that route to achieving it. And you as the person guiding someone through their plan, you can actually show them. You remember you had this goal when we started? You see how you achieved it? Especially when they're stuck. That's when you can say, any goal can be achieved. Look how you achieved that one. Look what you learned along the way. Now, let's see. What are the barriers with this one here? And what can we put in place to make sure that you achieve it? So it can reaffirm that progress is possible, and it makes explicit the progression that has occurred. It's a communication aid, absolutely. If it sits in Joan's head, how can I talk to her about it? But if it sits on paper, it gives me that opportunity to engage, to interact, but to do it on her terms, not mine. It's her goals, it's her achievement, and that's really important. Reinforces links, yes. Remember you had this goal here, now you're working towards this goal here, there's this one that you still need to do. So it constantly makes that explicit. And remember, each of these plans are written in the people's, in the individual way of expressing themselves. So it reinforces the links for them. And every time you all mentioned it, when you spoke about what an individual learning plan is, it has got to go back to the individual. It is about the individual.
Doesn't communication have two ends?
Yeah.
See where you were away.
Yeah. That's the spelling it out.
Yeah, let's not look at that.
Nina, please note that down. Since you produced these.
I don't.
Okay, so the key thing for you, this is also in your guide. What is my role as a facilitator, as a manager, as a supervisor, as a trainer in developing individual learning plans for others? Now that's wrong what I just said. In developing individual learning plans for others, you're never doing that. You're supporting and you are guiding the individual learning plans that individuals develop. You need to create a climate conducive to collaborative engagement. Nothing that is coming up here is new to you. You have all mentioned it. It's got to be a collaborative situation. But what you may need practice in is how to ensure collaboration. Yeah? Today, I've tried to practice that making mistakes are okay. I've made so many mistakes as a facilitator today, but that's okay. Work with that, and don't let it be at the detriment of the participants. It's really important that your participants remain engaged. This is about you. This entire session is about you. It's not about me. It's about how you engage in what you need to engage in order to achieve the outcomes that you have to achieve in this session. So make sure that you are going to be able to create that climate that's going to allow that individual to share in that focus, want that to be the focus. Because sometimes it's got to be, you have to develop an individual learning plan that is related to the job that they do or the study that they engaged in. So you're going to have to think. Johnny is not interested in human anatomy. Yeah? Why? I don't know. But anyway, Johnny isn't. But the point is, he's got to be. So now you need to think, before you have that session, you need to think about Johnny. Where's Johnny coming from? What motivates Johnny? How am I going to engage Johnny in this conversation so that this plan can have meaning for him? It is a highly individual plan, yeah? Product. You must use the skills that make learning explicit and accessible. I spoke earlier about metacognitive skills, the thinking skills, the way in which we think ourselves through something. You went through developing an individual learning plan today. Think about what were the stumbling blocks for you. Lee said the minute she got a focus, she could go. Yeah? And at some points, I assisted you in either by affirming or by reorganizing, but I assisted you in some way in getting on track or remaining on track. Yeah? So how can you make that experience explicit and accessible for the learner so that they can engage in developing that plan? Be constructive in feedback and support. You said that I was affirming. You said that I was reinforcing, that I was interested. Very important. You cannot help or assist or guide if you're not interested. It's very hard to engage in developing something with someone, guiding them in developing it, if you just have no interest in it. Don't do it, because you're actually going to inhibit them. You're going to prevent them from engaging meaningfully. So you need to decide, is this something I want to do with someone? If it's not something you want to do, but you have to, then you need to think about how you're going to organize yourself in that realm. Because you know that if you're not going to be constructive, you're going to shut them down. And they're not going to engage in a way that is meaningful. And you're not going to get any satisfaction from it. Scaffold information, varying my involvement and learner's dependence. Yes, they would want you to sit there with them until they finish the task. But to whose benefit is that? Yeah? At some point in that task, you need to determine what aspect of it requires your assistance and what aspect of it doesn't. And then, when do you come back in again? When do you go out? But make sure that they begin at the point where they are capable. So you're constantly starting from where they can to where they can't, giving the support. So now they can, now they're moving, now they can't, giving the support, so now they can. So you're scaffolding, you're building their capability to do something. Progressively move from the stage on the stage to the guide on the side. That's essentially what I just said before, and it's just a fancy term for that. Scaffold information, organize, be structured, be aware of your involvement. Know that at some point, if you stay involved, you're actually going to irritate and you're going to inhibit the development of the person. Yeah? And most importantly, you need to listen effectively. And the way in which you do that is you would have planned your session before. So you would know what is the reason that you are doing this with the person and what is your role. If your role is to guide and support, then that's what you do. So what are you listening for? You're listening for where the person is at and where they need to move to. And your awareness is of your role in that. Nothing more, nothing less. And that will help you in listening to the individuals that you talk to. And it's interesting because it's important to them. Yeah? Any questions around this before we move on to coaching? Because we're going to move on to coaching next.